Chapter 1, The Exit Interview. My ex-husband left me after 11 years of marriage because he said I wasn't exciting anymore. Those were his exact words, delivered on a Tuesday evening while I was folding laundry on the living room rug. The television was muted. Some reality show he usually liked was flickering silently in the background, and the only sound was the tumbling of the dryer in the other room. He didn't shout. He didn't cry. He just sat on the beige sofa we had bought together 3 years prior and told me that the life we had built was suffocating him. He said he loved me, but he wasn't in love with me. It's the kind of cliché you hear in movies and roll your eyes at, but when it's said to your face by the person who knows how you take your coffee and what you look like when you have the flu, it lands like a physical blow. He said I had become predictable. He said I was boring. He said he needed something more out of life, as if I were a starter course he had finished and was now ready to send back to the kitchen. I was 34 years old. I sat there holding one of his work shirts, the fabric warm from the dryer, and tried to process the math of our lives. I had spent my entire adult life building a foundation for this man. I met him when I was 23 and he was a frantic, debt-ridden student. I put him through graduate school by working double shifts at a mid-range Italian restaurant, coming home smelling of garlic and stale wine at 2 a.m. so he could study in peace. When he decided he hated academia, I supported him through that crisis. When he wanted to try marketing, I rewrote his resume. When he pivoted to logistics, I learned to budget on a fluctuation of income. I ported him through 3 different career changes. I packed our lives into cardboard boxes and moved to 4 different cities, Chicago, Denver, Austin, and finally back to the Midwest, because his jobs kept relocating us. I left behind friends. I left behind potential careers of my own. I made myself malleable, fitting into the cracks of his ambitions. And after all of that, he sat me down and told me he had met someone else. Her name was Brooke. He said it with a strange softness that made bile rise in my throat. She was 26 years old. She worked at the high-end gym he had joined 6 months ago, the one I encouraged him to join because he was feeling sluggish. It just happened, he said, looking at his hands like he was a victim of circumstance. I couldn't control my feelings. She makes me feel alive. He said he hoped we could still be friends because I was such an important part of his life. He actually reached out to touch my shoulder as he said it, as if he were consoling a widow rather than creating a divorcee. The divorce was final 8 months later. It was a sterile, paper-heavy process that stripped away the last decade of my identity. He got the house. His name was on the mortgage because his credit score was higher when we bought it, even though my tips paid the down payment. The lawyer explained that fighting it would cost more than the equity was worth. I walked away with a small settlement that barely covered my moving costs and the security deposit on a 1-bedroom apartment in a part of town I didn't know. I started over completely at 35. I stood in that empty apartment with nothing but a suitcase, a box of kitchen knives, and the cooking skills I had picked up working back of house in restaurants for over a decade. Chapter 2, The Heat of the Kitchen. I moved back to my hometown because I needed the ground to stop moving beneath my feet. I got a job at a local catering company called Elite Events, run by a no-nonsense woman named Dorothea. The work was grueling. It was heavy lifting, long hours on my feet, and high pressure. But it was also healing. In the kitchen, there was no ambiguity. If you followed the recipe, the result was guaranteed. If you prepped your station correctly, the service went smoothly. There was a logic to food that my marriage had lacked. I worked like a woman possessed. I took every shift Dorothea offered. Weekends, holidays, 4 a.m. breakfast prep, midnight cleanups. I became the person Dorothea relied on when things went wrong. When the oven broke at a gala, I improvised a menu on the grill. When a server dropped a tray of champagne, I cleaned it up before the guests noticed. Within 2 years, I had saved enough to buy my own van and rent hours in a shared commercial kitchen. I launched my own business, Table and Vine. I worked every weekend. I missed birthdays, I missed holidays, I missed sleep. I built a reputation for quality food and reliable service in a town where vendors were often flaky. I obsessed over details, the temperature of the plating, the crispness of the linen, the garnish on the appetizers. By year 3, I had a small team. There was Peyton, my sous chef, a 24-year-old culinary school dropout with purple hair and knife skills that terrified me. There were a handful of reliable servers. My client list kept growing. I was proud of what I created from nothing. I looked at my bank account and saw numbers that belonged only to me. Then, one rainy Tuesday afternoon, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Hello? I answered, balancing a tray of puff pastries. Hi, the voice said. It was a voice I hadn't heard in 3 years, but my body recognized it instantly. My stomach dropped. It was my ex-husband. I heard through mutual friends that you started a catering business, he said, his tone casual, friendly. I always knew you were talented in the kitchen. I set the tray down slowly. What do you want? He laughed a little, nervous. Right, straight to business. Look, I was wondering if you were available to cater a wedding in June. I paused. Whose wedding? Mine, he said. The silence stretched out. I could hear the hum of the commercial refrigerator in the background. You're marrying Brooke, I said. It wasn't a question. Yes, he said. And look, we want the best caterer in the area. We've been asking around, checking vendors, and everyone, literally everyone, kept recommending your company. People say your food is incredible. You want me to cater your wedding to the woman you left me for, I said slowly. It would mean so much to both of us if you could be part of our special day, he said, and he sounded sincere. That was the worst part. He genuinely didn't see the insanity of the request. Brooke specifically loved the menu samples she saw on your website. She really wants your food. I sat on a stool, listening to this man ask me to cook for his new life. He talked about it like he was asking an old friend for a favor. He said he knew we had history, but emphasized that we were both adults. I hope you've moved on by now, just like I have, he said. It's been 3 years. Then, he dropped the kicker. Also, since we used to be family, do you think you could give us a discount? I should have hung up. I should have told him to go to hell. But something cold and sharp settled in my chest. Yes, I said. I don't know why I said yes. Maybe I wanted to prove I was over it. Maybe I wanted to show them, physically show them, that I wasn't the boring woman he left. Maybe I wanted to see their faces when they realized how well I was doing. Or maybe, just maybe, I wanted the money. Because weddings pay well, and business is business. Full price, I added. No discounts. My rates are my rates. He hesitated, then agreed. Okay. Great. We're really happy about this. Chapter 3, The Menu of Revenge. I spent 3 months planning their menu. I treated it like a military operation. I coordinated with their venue, a sprawling, pretentious country club, and their wedding planner, a high-strung woman named Lena. I made sure every detail was perfect. I was not going to give them a single reason to complain. I never spoke to Brooke directly. She sent requests through my ex-husband, and he would relay them to me like I was some kind of executive assistant. Brooke wants a 5-course meal, he told me over the phone. She wants a raw bar. Oysters, shrimp, crab legs. She wants a pasta station where the chef tosses the noodles in a cheese wheel. She wants a dessert table. Not just cake. 7 different options. Mini tarts, mousse cups, everything. She wanted everything to be elegant, but not too formal. She wanted to signal wealth without looking like she was trying too hard. My ex-husband called me twice a week with updates and changes and new demands. He seemed to enjoy the contact. He chatted about the weather, about his job, about how stressful wedding planning was. He always ended the calls by saying how grateful he was that I was being so mature about everything. Most ex-wives wouldn't do this, he said. Most ex-husbands wouldn't ask, I replied, keeping my voice flat. The wedding day came in early June. The sky was a painfully bright blue. I arrived at the venue with my team at noon to start setting up. The ceremony wasn't until 5 p.m., so we had plenty of time. I was in the kitchen, organizing the prep stations. My hair was pulled back in a tight, severe bun. I was wearing my pristine white chef's coat with my company logo embroidered in navy thread. I held a clipboard, going over the timeline with Peyton. Scallops go in at 5:15, I instructed. I want the searing perfect. Golden brown, not burnt. Heard, Peyton said, checking the burners. My ex-husband walked in. He stopped in the kitchen doorway and just stared at me. He was wearing a tuxedo that fit him better than the one he wore at our wedding. He looked older, tired around the eyes, but handsome. I didn't look up from my clipboard immediately. I let him stand there. Hey, he said. I looked up. Can I help you with something? We're prepping. He didn't say anything for a long moment. He looked at the stainless steel counters, the busy staff, the sheer competence of the operation I was running. Then he looked at me. You look really good, he said softly. I'm working, I said. The business, it must be treating you well. I heard you're doing great. It is. He shifted his weight. Are you seeing anyone? I stared at him. That is not your concern. Please leave the kitchen. We have a schedule. He nodded, looking like a chastised schoolboy, and backed out of the room. Chapter 4, The Objection. The ceremony started on time. The kitchen at the venue had a long, horizontal window that looked out over the garden where the chairs were set up. I watched from the window as 200 guests took their seats. I recognized some of them. Old friends we used to have dinner with. His cousins. People who had faded from my life when the divorce papers were signed. The music started, a string quartet playing something modern and cloying. Brooke walked down the aisle. She was beautiful. I couldn't deny that. She was 29 now, glowing, wearing a white dress with a train that probably cost more than my first car. She looked triumphant. My ex-husband stood at the altar waiting for her. He looked nervous, sweating slightly under the afternoon sun. But everyone looks nervous at weddings. Brooke reached the altar. The officiant began to speak. Right before the officiant started the vows, my ex-husband shifted. He looked away from Brooke. He looked toward the building. Toward the kitchen. Toward the window where I was standing. Our eyes met across 50 yards of manicured grass. It was just for a second, but it felt like an hour. I saw panic in his eyes. I saw regret. I saw a man who had suddenly realized he was standing on a trapdoor. The officiant asked the standard question, if anyone has any objections to this union, speak now or forever hold your peace. My ex-husband didn't say anything. But he didn't look away from me, either. The ceremony froze in this awful, gelatinous moment. He was staring at me instead of his bride. Brooke, confused, turned her head. She followed his gaze. She looked toward the kitchen window. She saw me. I stepped back from the window immediately, my heart pounding against my ribs. What is happening? Peyton grabbed my arm, whispering. Why are they looking at us? Focus on the food stations, I snapped, my voice shaking. Outside, the officiant cleared his throat and repeated the question about objections. I heard my ex-husband's voice, amplified by the microphone clipped to his lapel. Then silence. It was a silence that made 200 guests shift uncomfortably in their wooden folding chairs. I peeked through the side of the window frame. I saw Grayson, the best man, a guy who used to come over to our house for football games, lean in to whisper something urgent to the groom. Brooke's face had gone pale under her professional makeup. I can't, my ex-husband said. It was a whisper, but the mic caught it. I forced myself to turn away from the window. Peyton, check the pasta water. Now. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't hold the ladle. Peyton gently took the serving spoons from me. Chef, go check the dessert table. I got this. The ceremony music stopped completely. A low murmur of confusion rose from the garden like a swarm of bees. Chapter 5, The Chaos. 10 minutes passed. No one had been pronounced husband and wife. Lena, the wedding planner, burst into the kitchen. Her headset was askew, and her eyes were wide with terror. We have a situation, she hissed. Can we delay the cocktail hour? They need a few minutes to resolve things. I can hold the hot appetizers for 15 minutes, I said, my voice purely professional. But the cold items are plated. The crab cakes will get soggy if they sit under the lamps too long. The timing will be off. Just hold them. Lena shouted, then ran back out. Through the open windows, I could hear voices rising in the garden. Not quite shouting, but the tense, sharp tones of an argument. I watched guests stand up. They were milling around awkwardly. Brooke and my ex-husband were having an intense, whispered fight near the altar. Nora, the maid of honor, had her arm around Brooke. Grayson was physically positioning himself between my ex-husband and the aisle, like a bouncer preventing an escape. The photographer had lowered his camera and was staring at the grass. Rajesh, the venue coordinator, came in. Okay, change of plan. Serve the cocktail appetizers now. We need to distract them. Get the alcohol flowing. Immediately. Go, I told my team. Trays out. Move. My staff moved efficiently, carrying out the crab cakes, stuffed mushrooms, and bacon-wrapped dates. I watched them navigate the confused crowd. The guests looked relieved to have something to do with their hands. I was arranging a garnish on a tray of endives when my ex-husband appeared in the kitchen doorway. He looked wrecked. His hair was messed up, like he'd been running his hands through it repeatedly. His face was flushed. "I need to talk to you," he said. "Right now." Peyton stepped between us, holding a chef's knife, pointed down, but still. "Sir, this is a professional kitchen during an active event. You need to leave." "I need to talk to her," he shouted, his voice cracking. He was staring at me with an expression I hadn't seen since our early dating years. Vulnerable. Desperate. "It's fine, Peyton," I said. I wiped my hands on a towel. Outside. I led him into the service hallway, away from the food and the staff. The moment the door closed, he started talking. "I made a mistake," he stammered. "I made a terrible mistake. Seeing you today, seeing you in that window, it hit me." "What hit you?" I asked, leaning against the cinder block wall. I felt absolutely nothing. No triumph. No anger. Just a detached clarity, like I was watching a stranger have a breakdown. "I realized what I gave up," he said. "You look so confident. You look successful. You built all this, without me." "Yes," I said. "I did. I remember why I fell in love with you," he rushed on. I was standing there, about to promise my life to Brooke, and I realized, she's not you. She's just excitement. She's a distraction. But you were my home. I cut him off. "Are you seriously doing this right now? On your wedding day? In your tuxedo? While your bride is crying in the garden and 200 people are eating the crab cakes I made?" I couldn't say the vows, he pleaded. I couldn't lie to her. "I still have feelings for you." "No, you don't," I said coldly. "You don't have feelings for me. You have feelings about me succeeding. You expected me to fall apart. You expected me to be the sad, lonely ex-wife. But I'm not. And that bothers you." He looked stunned. "That's not true. I love you. You loved the version of me who made herself smaller so you could feel bigger," I told him. He reached for my hand, but I stepped back. "I am here as the caterer you hired. I am not your ex-wife right now. I am a vendor. And I have 200 scallops that are going to get rubbery if I don't get back in that kitchen. Sarah, please. You need to figure out what you are doing about your wedding right now," I said. "Because every minute you stand here is another minute you are humiliating that girl." Lena appeared at the end of the hallway. "The bride is having a panic attack in the suite. She wants to know if there is still a wedding." My ex-husband looked between me and Lena like a trapped animal. "Handle your mess," I told him. I walked back into the kitchen. Chapter 6, The Maid of Honor. 20 minutes later, Lena came back. She looked exhausted. "The ceremony is continuing," she said flatly. "They are going to do a condensed version. We are moving straight to the reception timeline." I nodded. 12 minutes to scallops. I watched through the window as they walked back down the aisle. They were holding hands, but their smiles were rictus masks of terror. The guests clapped, but the air was thick with tension. During the cocktail hour, while I was plating appetizers, a woman in a deep purple dress walked into the kitchen. It was Nora, the maid of honor. "Can I talk to you?" she asked. I sighed. "I'm working. Please. It's about Brooke." I stepped aside. Nora looked me up and down. You're the ex-wife, she said. The one Brooke has been obsessing over for 2 years. Obsessing? She checked your Instagram every day, Nora said. She made him hire you. Did you know that? She insisted on it. Your prices were higher than the other 2 quotes. Why? I asked. She wanted to prove she could afford the best, Nora said. But mostly, she wanted to prove she was better than you. She wanted to show you that she won. She wanted to see you serving her. I felt a chill. That's twisted. It is, Nora agreed. She's been constantly comparing herself to the boring wife he described. But seeing you today, seeing this business you run, it broke her brain a little. She realized she's been competing with a ghost. Nora leaned in. I don't think this marriage is going to last the night. But thanks for the food. It's really good. Chapter 7, The Dinner Service. The reception was a surreal performance of denial. I focused on the food. The raw bar was replenished. The pasta station was a hit. The filet mignon went out perfectly medium rare, topped with truffle butter. Grayson, the best man, came into the kitchen during the main course. I just wanted to apologize, he said, looking at his shoes. For him. He's an idiot. Not your fault, I said. He talks about you all the time, Grayson admitted. When he drinks. He says leaving was the biggest mistake of his life. He chases shiny things. He always has. Grayson, I said. I appreciate it. But I don't need his regret. I really don't. Edmund, Brooke's father, was the next visitor. A heavy-set man in an expensive suit, looking weary. You're the caterer, he said. Yes, sir. And the ex-wife? Yes. He shook his head. Well, this is a disaster. But the steak is excellent. Thank you. She rushed into this, Edmund said, almost to himself. She wanted to win. She treated marriage like a trophy. I tried to tell her. He looked at me. You're very professional. Staying through this. I have a contract, I said. Chapter 8, The Bride. We were plating desserts, 7 different options, just as requested, when Brooke appeared in the kitchen doorway. She was still in her dress, but the train was bustled clumsily. Her mascara was smudged. She looked stripped down, raw. Can we talk? She asked. Her voice was small. I looked at Peyton. Handle the creme brulee torching. I stepped into the hallway with Brooke. You ruined my wedding, she said, crying. I cooked the food you asked for, I said. You invited me. I wanted to see if you were as boring as he said, she confessed. I wanted to feel superior. God, that sounds awful. It is awful, I said. But you're not boring, she wiped her nose. You're impressive. You have this whole team. You didn't even flinch when everything went crazy. He looked at you and he realized he traded substance for meat. He traded stability for excitement, I corrected. That's on him. Not you. Do you still love him? She asked. No, I said instantly. And it was the truth. I don't. The divorce forced me to find out who I was. I spent 11 years propping him up. Now I prop myself up. I don't want him back, Brooke. You can have him. She laughed, a bitter, wet sound. I don't know if I want him either. He couldn't even say his vows without checking with you first. You need to decide if you are marrying who he is, or who you hope he'll become, I said. Because he is a man who looks for the next best thing. Good luck. Chapter 9, The Aftermath. The reception wound down. We broke down the kitchen. We packed the vans. My team was buzzing. They knew everything that had happened, but they were professionals. We had executed a flawless event in the middle of a soap opera. I walked out to the parking lot. The air was cool. My ex-husband was waiting by my van. His tie was undone. He looked destroyed. "Sarah," he said. "Please. Can we just get coffee? Can we talk? Now that I'm divorced." "Well, practically." "No," I said. "Why?" he asked. "We had something real. We had something I built," I said. "And you broke it. I'm not your safety net, Mark. I'm not your backup plan. I'm not the boring wife you come back to when the excitement wears off." I opened the van door. "What am I supposed to do?" he asked, sounding like a child. "Figure it out," I said. Like I did. I drove away. I watched him in the rearview mirror, standing alone under the parking lot lights, shrinking until he was gone. Chapter 10, The Rise. The next morning, my phone blew up. Not from him, I blocked his number before I went to sleep. It was Lena. She forwarded me 3 referrals from guests at the wedding. They loved the food. They loved the professionalism. Dorothea called. "I heard you were a rock star," she said. "Listen, I have a corporate client. Financial services. Big money. They need a daily caterer for executive lunches and monthly galas. I told them about you. They want a meeting." I got the contract. It was worth more than my entire first year of business. The reviews started coming in. 5 stars. Best wedding food ever. Incredible service under pressure. 2 months later, I heard through Nora that Brooke and my ex filed for an annulment. The marriage lasted 4 months. I didn't care. My business exploded. I moved into a larger industrial kitchen. I hired more staff. I promoted Peyton to head chef. I moved into a new apartment, a 2-bedroom with huge windows and a kitchen I designed myself. I bought art that I liked. I bought a couch in a color I wanted. 6 months later, I met Jake. He was a marketing consultant for one of my corporate clients. He was funny, kind, and secure. He didn't need me to be small. He loved that I was a boss. One night, sitting on my balcony with a glass of wine, looking out over the city lights, I thought about that moment in the parking lot. My ex-husband had called me boring. He was wrong. I was just busy building the foundation. And now that he was gone, I was finally free to build the skyscraper. I took a sip of wine, smiled, and turned my back on the past. The future tasted delicious.